Today in the Porsche world, when you talk about GT cars, you're typically thinking about something like this. We're in Durham, North Carolina, and we're at Road Scholars, and I want to introduce you to where the story began with GT cars. Be sure to log into your YouTube account, subscribe to our channel, and turn on notifications so you don't miss a video. Cam, thank you very much for having us.
The
GT story, like I said, most people think of GT3 RSs, GT2s, the more modern day cars, and the race cars, obviously. But the significance of Porsche and the racing program, the GT program, starts way, way back. And these three cars are a perfect example of how it began.
Absolutely. Porsche started the GT program in 1957, realizing that their customers wanted to race all over the world in endurance racing or even rally racing as well. And that's where the program started with the T1 program in late 1956. And most of those early GT cars were based on the Speedster platform, as we well know.
Yeah, and these here were cars that individuals, not popular race teams or wealthy individuals per se, but people could walk in, understand what the options are, and personalize their car, which is what Porsche is really known for today.
Absolutely, and I think your analogy at the beginning of the discussion was spot on. These cars really represent a conundrum of a Porsche enthusiast could go in a dealership and order what the equivalent today would be a GT3R or Cup car and drive it home. And that's why these GT cars are so special, because what we're really talking about is a weight saving program of most cases under 200 pounds.
Well, let's talk about this first example here, which is a stunning red, but it's a very special red.
Yeah, this is ruby red.
This is ruby red.
Yeah, and a lot of GTs, most of the GT production, if you look at the breakdown of colors, they were either silver metallic or ruby red. This is a T5 program car. When we look at Porsche and the technical programs, T1, T2, T5, and T6, the final iteration of 356 production, Guards red and silver metallic were highly featured on most of the GT cars. And
this car, for those that are a bit into 356s, they know pre-A's, A's, B's, and C's.
Yeah, that's right.
This would be
This is a B. So, and B's can also be T6s, so when you get into the nuances of 356 production. But this is a 1961 356B Super 90 GT that they only made 14 of, and they only made 8 in 1961, the final year of production.
And how does this car differ from a standard B of that time?
Again, it's a part of the GT program, so it has aluminum doors, front hood, and engine deck lid. It's got the very sexy louvers, which identify cars after 1957 production. In 1958, these had 5 louvers, and after 1958, they had 6 louvers. This is a very GT option that we see on many Outlaws, as we know.
Sure.
And so many of the details on these GT cars throughout the generations from 1957 all the way to 1964 have these very GT-specific details made for racing that we see on modern 356 Outlaws.
Yeah, these cars inspired generations later, but these bits that were added was for performance, not just for looks.
100%. Obviously, you get the benefits of cooling the engine, the air-cooled engine with these louvers. The weight savings come from no interior sound deadening, basically GT seats, lighter than the comfort seats, a roll bar, and usually a GT tank ordered in the cars with a higher fuel capacity, all based on whether you were doing endurance racing, sprint racing, or even obviously rallying. This car, delivered new to Sweden, has a famous race history, rally race history in Sweden, winning many races there.
Now this car, if you took it into today's terms of, let's say, the GT4 Clubsport, where it's really a race car, but the engine and drivetrain are very much something can be serviced by a dealership.
Yep.
This Super 90, is it the same as a standard 90?
Yeah, it is. It is, absolutely. So you could order a Super 90 street car, 356B, or you could order this Super 90 GT. The engine's completely the same, and the Super 90 model was ordered to compete with its own Carrera, the 4 camshaft Ernst Furman designed engine for Porsche. That was their first competition design engine. So this was really aimed at the racer that wanted 356 serviceability with similar horsepower, obviously 90 horsepower. A 1964 cam like this would have been producing about 140 horsepower.
Wow. I would say there's a lot of folks today that have sort of created their own versions of this that we typically say Outlaw and such.
Yes.
But this one's pretty much a sleeper compared to, say, this one.
Yeah. Well, it's great. Both cars feature the plexiglass windows, which accounted for a lot of weight loss, as well as windows that don't roll up. You have to pull them and push them down, Again,
All in the name for saving weight.
all in the name of saving weight. And, again, form and function, Porsche's most famous thing. You can see the seat rails have been drilled out. Now, this car is interesting. If you knew how to navigate the GT program, you could do special things. This is an SC that was delivered and ordered with all GT options. So they only made 4 of these. This car was purchased by a gentleman named David McLean, who was a lawyer, ended up being a state senator, but his claim to fame was he bought this from the showroom, raced at the SCCA Paul Whitman Trophy, won first, and then went to Daytona when it was the 2,000 kilometer race, and he won class 11th overall, on track with GT40s, 250 GTO Ferraris, and you can imagine these 3 privateers mixing it up with like the most mega cars from that era and winning class 11th overall.
And these guys, were they trailing their cars, or are they just throwing things on and driving to the races?
I mean, you could have driven this. I
Yeah.
mean, you could have, you bought this from the showroom floor, like buying a GT3R, different, but you could drive this home and you could drive it to the track. And, they obviously picked up local sponsorship with the Dunlop Tires and the tire sale company in Tampa, Florida.
Got to pay for the tires.
You got to pay for the tires somehow.
Yeah.
And for Daytona, they added this extra light bar. And these are the Marshall driving lights.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people know the Marshalls from the movie Le Mans with the cat eyes, the very iconic cat eye design. And the Super 90 actually has those as well. So
now these light grills, I've seen these before. I've seen more vertical kind of slat styles.
Yep.
And these are clip-ons. So
Yep.
there's in the 356 world, you have to be period correct, or at
Yes.
least accurate, right?
Accurate,
So
yeah.
is this accurate to this
this
car?
was a later dealer. This could be bought by a dealer, like a dealer accessory,
Okay.
or privateer could have put these on. We have photos of this car racing with these. That's why they're on there. Those early slat versions, the vertical slats, those are mostly on pre-A's and T1 cars. But misconception there is that they were only on speedsters. They actually were available on 54 and 55 coupes as well.
So because these cars had a lot of aluminum on that, did it help preserve the car over the decades of ownership as opposed to a steel metal car?
Well, that's the challenge and that's why the doors, as I was showing you earlier, these doors are riveted on. So it's aluminum that's riveted onto these car doors, right? And you can feel those rivets and how it's put on. So these are 2 alloys that do not want to be together. So to answer your question, sometimes they don't survive well because they're trying to separate from each other.
Oh, okay.
So it's rare, and it's a great thing when you find a GT car that wasn't hit 10 ways from Sunday and has its original panels. That's definitely a rare thing.
Now, a piece that I always love when again, my depth of knowledge in 356 is growing, but I love when there's louvers on the windows here. Was that like something that was created later on and it wasn't a factory thing?
Yeah.
But I like how they look.
Oh, they look great.
Yeah.
Basically that's something that people emulated from Le Mans for Porsche when they had the Gemund SLs, the super lightweights.
Right.
But to my knowledge, that was not something formally done at the factory. That was kind of a hot rod thing. And of course, we all know that in the 911 world from the mighty 1967 911R.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep.
This car is really neat because it has aluminum door frames, which is very special. And even among GT cars, that's very rare in itself.
Now, these cars both equipped with push rods 1600?
Yes, this is an SC motor, and this is a Super 90 motor, 90 horsepower, 95 horsepower. So near the weights, in terms of the GT program, basically the same weight savings, though about 200 pounds less than a production car.
And I see a lot of trim pieces missing on these cars too, like the bottom skirts and such, all in the name of saving weight.
Correct. The things that people notice and always ask when we drive these in public, not just at Rent Sport or some special event, is, "Oh, I really like your Outlaw." And
the factory Outlaw.
And I was like, yeah, it is a factory Outlaw. Yeah. But because they're like, oh, it doesn't have bumper guards, and the GT cars doesn't have bumper guards. It doesn't have a rocker trim panel underneath the doors. They're cleaned up, and that was all for weight savings.
They don't even have hubcaps.
No.
They run bare.
Yeah, well, they did come with aluminum hubcaps, which are very rare. They're rare as hen's teeth.
Because they tossed them.
They tossed them.
They
Now,
tossed
you're
them.
not going to, as a race car driver or mechanic, be screwing around with trying to get the even aluminum hubcaps off.
Now, as nice as these cars are, the car behind me, I really consider the holy grail. This car is so special.
Yeah.
And what we learned earlier with these little pieces here, this is a factory.
Factory,
Grill.
yep. Because this is one of the options you could order. Obviously, this headlight bolts through a 10-ax system to the body. So you're pot committed and a factory option of drilling those into the body of the car. This car came with the belts. Again, for weight saving purposes, if you wanted to take the front trunk latch out or extra secure to have these with the trunk latch. Obviously, this is one of the most popular outlaw looks in modern era Porsche, the feel through the hood, center fill, and this was obviously done for racing. So the ease of swoop, poof.
From either side, because it wasn't
side.
for looks, it was for efficiency.
Yes, exactly. The spider mirror, which is, obviously that's something that's so sexy as a mirror, but functional as well, aerodynamic as well. This car was ordered with this very special heated element windshield. So it actually has a heated windshield. The gentleman who ordered this wanted to go rally racing. So it makes a lot of sense to have a heated windshield. A very rare option in any 356, let alone a GT car.
So does the documentation on this car back at the motherland show heated windshield on as a spec?
Yeah, on CarDex.
Because there can't be very many cars that have that.
Yeah, and we went through a bunch of windshields to have this made special for this car, and we haven't even done the logo yet, so we'll do the proper Securt logo. And as you can see, it's all wrapped up because we, when we finish restoring a car, we put about 1,000 miles on it because we not only want our cars to do well at Porsche Parade or Pebble Beach, but we want the car to be able to be driven like the way it came from the factory.
Take a look at this, Damon. Inside here, we talk about Porsches and Porsche exclusive manufacturer and having the ability to build and make the car to your liking. If you look here, it even comes down to your choice of seat.
That's right. The gentleman who ordered this wanted a GT seat for the driver and a comfort seat, if you will, modern lexicon, for the passenger. So maybe he wanted his Rally Navigator to be
comfortable.
Comfortable. So. And
how about the roll cage that's in it?
Again, the GT cars most often all came with the roll cages, obviously adding safety and rigidity to the chassis as well. And again, we have these plexiglass doors, and that saves significant weight because you don't have the system, basically the roller system in there. Plexiglass windows, rear quarter windows with no door frame.
And the door is very light.
Yeah.
I mean,
that's
noticeably different.
Noticeably different.
Oh.
Yeah. And then coming back here, this is a very special engine, as we were talking about. This car was actually ordered with a 692.3A engine, which means it's a 1600 engine. The majority of Carrera A-Bar GTLs had this motor in them, so it's a very special.
So was it to stay in class?
It was for him to not be racing in the 2-liter class.
The 2-liter class, yeah.
Yeah, he wanted to be in the 1.6-liter. And it's a great motor in the sense of it's a plain bearing motor. The last iteration, the 4-cam plain bearings, and it is a wonderful motor in terms of its torque output.
So those of you that aren't familiar with the Furman 4-cam, maybe Cam, if you can share, why is it special compared to a standard 1600 pushrod?
Well, again, it gets back, it is all bevel gear driven. So I always make the analogy like of a Swiss watch or an automatic, mechanical watch, in terms of when you open up the back of the case and you see all those wonderful gears. That's what the inside of this engine looks like. And it's 4 camshafts, and for a little 1.6 liter to be producing about 140 horsepower with a mild tune is really impressive out of 4 cylinders.
Absolutely, and pushing very little weight at that too.
Right.
And that's why they were, killing cars with, twice the number of cylinders, but also twice the weight, if not more.
Yeah, and winning overalls, and obviously class wins, but sometimes overalls because of the dependability and endurance of the Porsches. I've always said that if you think about the 550, 550A, RSK, R60, the Spider program, that was the prototype program, and this is the GT3R and RSR program, if you will, in modern day.
Yeah, absolutely.
In language.
And the continuing development of the GT program, which started with all these cars, is what delivers us the GT cars that we have today.
Absolutely. And customers winning all over the world in discipline events, whether it be rally, endurance racing, or sprint racing. the GT program really accounts for so many of Porsche's victories, class wins, and it's not just factory efforts.
Absolutely. So there, a little insight into the GT world and where it all started.